Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the January 31st, 2018 North Broward Hospital District Board of Commissioners. Okay. Fine, or is she Ariana? Will do the call the roll call?
Commissioner Fremont? Here. Commissioner Klein?
Here.
Commissioner Wellens?
Here.
Commissioner Erie?
Here.
Commissioner Rodriguez?
Here. I'm going to ask Commissioner Klein to do the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do we have any comments from the audience?
Yes, we do.
Okay, let's hear, just remind you that you have 3 minutes. Because for less than 1 time, you have another back-to-back meeting here. So if we ring the bell, it's nothing personal, it's business. So who we have first?
We have Pastor Alan Jackson.
There he is. Good afternoon, Pastor.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, and the rest of the board members. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak. It's been an exciting and interesting adventure to be a part of the process of the board looking at bringing in the new CEO. I have to tell you, the 2 days that we sat there and listened to all of the different candidates, it was very enlightening, especially considering the process that they were dwindled down from 300 people. And so today, myself and some of the other community leaders, we come to just kind of express that after listening to those individual candidates over those couple of days, you know, I think they all look good on paper, but I don't feel that they're all good for the position. I think the thing that is very important for the district right now is stability and some sense of continuity and some sense that there is, the storm is getting behind us and we're putting the storm behind us and we're moving forward. And so today, my recommendation, just my voice from the community, would be that the board consider leaving the ship the way it is. From my understanding of talking to different individuals and just having really heart-to-heart conversations, I think that the current interim CEO and the team that she's put together is taking the ship in the right direction. I think that they are doing a great job bringing the ship through the storm and taking the ship to where it needs to go. And so today I would encourage and just ask the board to take that as a consideration, to look at leaving the interim CEO in the place that she is, because now you got to start if you don't pick from the 4, you got to start a whole new process again, and it's just going to be extremely time consuming. And then you bring someone from the outside in, I think it'll probably mess up the unity that they form with their team and the existing CEO. So I thank you. I think I heard the bell. I thank you for your time, and I pray for your consideration to leave the existing CEO in place and with her team, and let's move the ship forward. And we look forward to doing some things with the board as well as the team so that the community can be more involved. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Pastor George Rich.
Good afternoon, Chair and Vice Chair and all of the co-commissioners here. I repeat some of the same things that Pastor Allen has already said. It was certainly a privilege sitting here for those 2 days on last week and listening to all of the candidates and your questions and things that you have asked. But out of those 2 days, when I walked away, being someone that has a degree in HR, I have 13 to 14 years experience in HR, workforce development, recruiting, different things on that level, sitting in interviews on your side of the desk, but actually never having an opportunity to be like a fly on the wall, right? So like I was listening and I was able to really use that HR skill set that I have, and I did my own screening on my own level. But more than that, I thought about the current direction of this organization and how the community and your constituents, who are the residents of Broward County, would be impacted by bringing in a new CEO. And I weighed that, and I know that you guys and ladies, sit in such a difficult seat right now. But I would also say that I believe that the current CEO and her team, because any CEO is only as good as the team that they have. We had the privilege of meeting with the current top team, and I'm gonna call them your top three there. And we have started, and we are growing a great relationship toward making positive community impact. And bringing in a new CEO who may have a different vision, who might not be as invested in the community as your current CEO and top three, I feel that would bring a sense of instability to this, to Broward Health, that we are trying to escape that image and that perception. So again, I support keeping the current CEO and her team. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Chairman, can we just get like the spelling of everybody's name, just so I have it for the record of all the speakers? That was Pastor
George Rich. The first one was Pastor Alan B. Jackson.
Right, okay, great, thank you.
And now we have Vincente Throne.
Good afternoon, board members. Vicente Thrower. I too sat through all these interviews, and at the end of the day, I come with the same conclusion that we currently need stability. I know that the chair has always said that he is going to choose and make sure that the community gets a CEO and that we move forward. But for stability purposes, we need to look at the bigger pictures as if we were a company and we were the shareholders. If we are shareholders in this company, we need to look at stability and how the financial market looks at what Broward Health does. Currently, you all have bonds that you recently put out and have taken in money. It's a purpose that the financial market gave you that money. They had to believe in what you currently are doing as the board chairman. They had to believe what this board is doing to the vice chairman and the other board members. And they had to really believe in the CEO and the current team. Don't nobody give money to an unstable board of directors or an unstable executive team. If that was the case, you all wouldn't have got the money. We are of a belief that at current form, though you all may be facing some challenges and legal things that we cannot talk about, the community believes that stability is the most important part. It's easy to go and choose some of those other people and to say that they can take us wherever they believe they can take us. But right now, we believe, and it is in the best interest of this body, to say, how do we move this ship and keep it driving until we can figure out all those other, well, you know, we just call it what it is. People with personal agendas. We're here for the community, and the community, and as your shareholders, should have a say-so and supportive of the current governing body and its decision to put the CEO who's currently acting right there. So for that purpose, I also stand with the SCLC in supporting, asking that you all keep her and keep this ship moving forward and stay in control of this ship. This ship is only as good as the chairman and others, and you all support the CEO. So that is where I stand, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next person.
Pastor McElroy.
I'm going to give my time to Pastor Gary Johnson.
Thank you.
Pastor Gary Johnson?
Yes, ma'am. Am I next?
Yes.
All right. How y'all doing this evening, this afternoon?
Good afternoon.
Don't be so serious. It's okay. It's a beautiful day. Thank you. Thank you for standing me, Reverend McLemore. My name is Reverend Gary Johnson, President of South Florida SCLC. I wanted to share something that was on my heart up until this morning. I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And good to see you, Board Member Stevens. Thank you for being on the monitor. I thought you conducted yourself well, even on the monitor, but it's good to see you in presence.
I didn't look as good, Joe, with this dress. If I took a suit to Colorado, they would throw me out of state.
Yeah, but we were freezing because you were freezing up there, though. I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis from a doctor. And come to find out, Mr. Chairman, that I didn't have rheumatoid arthritis, but there was some issues that I had within my body. Where my red cells was fighting my white cells. And my white cells was supposed to fight off the diseases. And what I discovered is that the doctors couldn't find out what the problem was. So they gave me medicine. You're in a situation right now where your white cells can't fend off this problem. It was the outside medicine that healed me. That you got to know when to bring in medicine to heal the condition of the internal body. Right now, as we speak, what matters to me, and I say us as SCLC, is the patients, those employees, the doctors, and the direction and the welfare of this institute. We are here specifically to support your agenda as long as it's going to support the people. And I thank God for Mrs. Nancy for bringing up the community, because it's going to be the community that you'll be singing about in terms of the illness. It'll be the community that will stand with you when things go wrong. Right now you're under a microscope, a telescope, and a magnifying glass. But it is the outside will help you see a little clearer and support what you're doing. It's unfortunate when I heard the word indictment after seeing a meeting with all of you are wonderful people. And my prayer is that goes away immediately and you stay where you are so you can continue to drive this hospital in the right direction. I believe that you have the wisdom to do it through Mr. Klein and Mr. Christopher and many of the board members. But you got to unite it together and listen to the community. I can say this in closing. Wells Fargo had a similar situation, and we teamed up with them. Today, when they went through all they went through, today they've never missed a dollar. They've never missed a constituent pull their money out of the bank. It's because they had the support of the community. And I will give you the names of the regional director by the name of Marlene, as well as the president of Miami, which is Leo Toka. You can call him. He'll tell you. It was with SCLC. We worked a relationship where business was important to the bank, and the constituents continue to support. You can't penalize the whole employees because of a few people. So having said that, I close with this. If you're going to keep the body in place, I know you're concerned about the media, but we are the media. And we'll stand with you 100% as long as it has the body first, the people that employ you, that you employ, the doctors, the nurses, the administrators, put them first for a change. And watch what happens. They'll become, this hospitals, the facilities will become a priority to them to see it succeed. So we're here to support you. And if you're going to keep it the same the way it is, we will be 100% behind you. And thank you, Mr. Chairman and the board members, for this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're getting ready to hear from the leadership feedback, which has been unprecedented because we've been the first board, I believe, that ever provide the...
Excuse me, Commissioner Rodriguez, we have one more speaker.
Who's that?
Mr. Cobo.
Mr. Cole. Oh, sorry. Oh.
I'm former Commissioner Cobo, and thank you for the time. With all due respect, I have been around this community and I've been in a lot of boards in this community. I just served 12 years in the Workforce One Board, and many others. I have never, ever, in 40 years that I've been around this place, seen a staff more scared from retaliation that has been occurring. You need a change. And Mr. Chairman, I'm proud of what you said the last time. We've had disagreements. We've known each other for 25 years. Yes, there are some very good people in this organization, CEOs and other people that have worked very hard. But a lot of people have been hurt. A lot of people have been hurt since December 14, 2014. We need a change. We need a change now. Your staff, my father was just in the hospital 3 times so far this year. For the first time on the floors, doctors, everybody was coming up to me because they know me and say, something's got to give. So I ask you, and believe me, in every community board that I'm on, from the city of Fort Lauderdale, the comment is the North Broward Hospital District. The retaliation that is going on in this organization is sad. And you do need a new leader. What is being said in the community that this is all a sham, that you were going to leave this lady as the CEO. I hope that is not true, because you will see a lot of very, very unhappy people. Yes, you need stability, but you need a change, and you need a change now.
Thank you, Mr. Cobo.
Commissioner Cobo.
Commissioner Cobo, sorry. I'm getting ready to bring the leadership feedback, but before I bring you folks, I just want to set the rules straight. We are the new Broward Health. We stand for transparency, ethics, honesty, and integrity. And we do not flip candidates on the 11th hour. Doing the opposite will be unethical, dishonest, the lack of transparency, and ultimately will corrupt the integrity of this process. For almost a year, we have faithfully followed the process. To post the CEO search was open for a couple of months. Month later, over 300 people applied. Just a little bit before Christmas, Commissioner Whelan and I were informed that this vetting process was coming to an end. We worked on the process to bring in the 10 best candidates of the pack. We, this board, in public forum, review all these candidates. We picked 6 out of the 10. And two are employed, and that's expected to happen when you're dealing with good people. We end up with 4. These candidates have waited over a year for the opportunity to be interviewed. Commissioner Capasso, former Commissioner Capasso, was never a candidate. Now we have 4 very qualified candidates who have waited. And we have a team of professionals who have our own staff. This is the first time that I believe that any board included their medical staff to give us some input. While it's not binding, we have the consideration to you because we trust your judgment. And we are giving you the opportunity to help us find who's going to lead you out of these 4. We have done this process like no other I've ever seen in this hospital. It is time for us to move forward and name one of these candidates to lead the very professional support team that is now in place. And we thank Mrs. Capasso for doing such a good job, because right now we have a very strong support team of professionals. I happen to get along with all of them. And by the way, I don't have a horse on this race, and I don't think any one of my colleagues do either. So we avoided the constant lobbying. We avoided the constant snagging. So we bring in someone with a fresh outlook, beholden to no one, to lead a team of professionals. And as we help them do, or her, do that. And we're depending on you to help us, because I don't believe that we wanted, leave you out. It was all our intention to bring you in and say, oh, these 4 candidates, please give us your feedback. I hope and I trust that at the end of this meeting, we can send to the next meeting a candidate to be the CEO of Broward Health. Not doing so, we have no business sitting on these dais. So having said that, let me hear from Sandra.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
On behalf of the leadership team and the medical staff of the 4 regions, the Physicians Medical Group, the CDTC, and Community Health Services, we appreciate the opportunity afforded to us to participate in the CEO selection process. The process consisted of 2 days at Broward Health Medical Center and Broward Health North, hosting the 4 candidates for interviews by multidisciplinary groups from all healthcare entities. Each participant scored the individuals confidentially. Ms. Page from Human Resources will present the consensus scores of each candidate for your consideration in the CEO selection process. Thank you.
Sandra, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Because I asked that none of us would get any information from you folks
Sure.
until you got here today. And I want to make sure that because I haven't talked to anybody when they offered to send me information from the vetting company. I says, no, we all do it together. When I get it, everybody else gets it, and so, thank you. I just wanted to know.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hey, good afternoon. The leadership team conducted a comprehensive assessment of the candidates. The team considered their business acumen, ability to drive results, employment background, and cultural fitness. The leadership team, as Sandra mentioned, rated each candidate using a numeric value, 1 being poor, 2 being average, 3 good, 4 very good, and 5 excellent. The scores were compiled, and the results were as follows. Joseph Jaleen received a 2.9 out of 5. Barbara Martin received a 2.5 out of 5. Michael Young received a 2.1 out of 5. And Robert Minkin received a 1.7 out of 5. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
In closing, Commissioners, I want to thank you for the opportunity you afforded the leadership team. Everybody was very appreciative that we had a voice and the opportunity to meet the talented candidates.
Have you ever had an opportunity like this before?
No, we didn't.
And how long you been here?
Well,
No, you don't.
13.
Since you were 13, right?
Yeah. About 14 years, so, okay?
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you
thank
to
you.
both of you.
Thank you.
Can I ask that you repeat those scores that you gave?
Sure.
Thank you.
So Joseph Jaleen received a 2.9 out of 5. Barbara Martin received a 2.5 out of 5. Michael Young received a 2.1 out of 5. And Robert Minkin received a 1.7 out of 5.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the good job. Medical staff, Dr. Ta. How are you, sir?
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Board of Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
On behalf of the medical staff, I would like to thank the board for including physician leaders in the CEO recruitment process. We appreciate the collaboration and partnership in this very important endeavor. Including the group of physicians that had the opportunity to meet the candidates were Chief of Staff, members of the Medical Executive Committee, regional medical officers, and the Chief Medical Officer. After each interview, feedbacks regarding strengths and opportunities of each candidate were collected. We did not rank the candidates as the previous group did. I would like to present to you the summary of these strengths and opportunities of each candidate, if I may. First, Ms. Barbara Martin. The strengths included experience with diverse medical staff, including employed and community physician model, experience with turnaround initiatives, medical staff oriented and recognizes medical staff as an asset and integral part of a healthcare organization. She's willing to work collaboratively with medical staff. Some opportunities were recent experience in mainly locums. Based on work history, she lacked long-term commitment, and she was unable to clearly express the vision for the new Broward Health. Next candidate was Mr. Michael Young. The strengths were he had no nonsense, get it done attitude, had vast experience including safety net organizations, and has extensive healthcare fund of knowledge, and had good ideas how to improve Broward Health. The opportunity,
Sorry, what was, Dr. Todd, what was that last time?
had good ideas how to improve Broward Health. The opportunities were his communication style was perceived as abrasive, and some physicians thought he was too arrogant. Leadership style was perceived as not collaborative and not conclusive. The next candidate was Mr. Joseph Gilleen. His strengths were his good verbal communication skills, he was thoughtful in his answers, his thinks through before answering, was not impulsive, and had good amount of CEO experience. His opportunities were he had no experience working in a very complex medical staff as in Broward Health. He did not project a very strong and confident leadership style. The final candidate, Mr. Robert Minkin. He had some CEO experience, but not as much as the other candidates. He had great business acumen, and he had some turnaround experience. His opportunities for improvement included lack of experience in complex medical staff, especially working with community physicians. He had no corporate integrity agreement experience, and he lacked experience in large complex healthcare systems. That concludes my summary for the candidates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me go back to you, Karen. Karen. I just had a question from her. Because of my hearing a little bit sometimes, you know. I'm always at the shooting range, so sometimes I forget to use my...
Okay.
Jolene, what's his name is Joseph?
Joseph Gilleen.
He was at 2.9.
Yes, 2.9.
And Ms. Martin was 2.5?
2.5.
Okay. I tell you how, I have no, I didn't want to talk about anybody. I carefully sat and waited for your input because we want to make sure that somebody is going to work with you as well as you need to work with them and they need to work with us. Okay? And with this team here, you know, you're going to have to, you got to run. Okay, so I feel very confident and trust all three of them. I know that there's nothing you cannot do. Period. That's the way I looked at it, and I commend you. Okay. So the first time I'm going to mention what's his name, Joseph Jolene. His poise and emotional balance was very important to me. He was, to me, the best prepared. He had a very good opening. He had a very good closing. He understood the system to the best of his knowledge, and he was humble enough to say, look, I need to assess the, you know, and I remember when we hired Ms. Barrett, I asked her the same question, and she says, I'm going to spend 6 months, and tell me if I'm lying. And I says, I'm going to spend 6 months assessing. Remember when you first came here, when we were getting ready to hire you, and you said you're going to assess. Well, unfortunately, you didn't really have much time to do a lot of assessment, and you had to save your life, so you hit the ground running. All right? But you did say that. Your intentions were to assess and stuff like that, which is the approach that I see, because he's got to learn from you, or she, or whoever it is got to learn from them. So I felt comfortable with him, and I want to hear what the rest of the board have to say.
You probably are going to not want to hear from me first. The candidates were excellent, but I see their scores, 2.9 is the highest of the scores. They're not what Broward Health. I agree with the community. I think Broward Health needs the stability that it now has. And maybe 2 years from now, we'll be in better shape to attract better candidates than these. I rank them, as you asked me to, Chairman, but I rank Ms. Procasso at the top of that.
Well, there's no doubt that she is a good administrator, but the issue is that if you listen to the tape on May 5th, when I asked her, knowing that there's no opportunity for a permanent job, okay, and I would have had the tape here, maybe we could play it. Several times she says, I don't want this job, I don't really want it, I don't want this job, I help you guys out, and I want to get back to this thing. And that, we made a promise to this community that that was not going to happen.
Well, we've heard from the community.
Well, they're part of the community, you know, with all due respect, they're a huge part of the community, but there's other people in the community that are not here either.
Where are they?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm from the community. I disagree. You have a process, you need to follow your
You
process.
have to follow the process.
Commissioner, it's out of order.
I am out
It's
of
out of
order.
order to be shouting from the audience.
Yeah, Dan, please, just take, you know, this is out of the process. This will corrupt the process, and we can't do it.
I have to follow my conscience.
That's
I
fine.
think that's why the governor put me on this.
I understand, and you're welcome to vote any way you want to, but we need to make a move. And bringing Capasso as a permanent CEO is not part of this process.
I don't believe she would be permanent, number one, but I think that this, from what I understand, and I've only been here a month, this district has come a long way under Ms. Carpasso's leadership. To change now, while it's in the process of improving, seems to me unwise. It seems to me that 2 years from now, we can be having this conversation with a stronger district. But the changes that have been made now are because of her leadership.
And not doing so will be lying to the community and going back on the promise that we made.
Well, I don't know anything about the promise. I'm not suggesting that she would be the permanent CEO. She would remain as interim CEO, so that promise wouldn't be broken.
Well,
as far as her agreement, I think I haven't spoken to her, so I haven't asked her if she would stay. I'm just giving you what you asked for, my feedback.
okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Chairman, I would like to know if I could look at Dr. Ta's list, because I was trying to, you went through the strengths and weaknesses pretty quickly, and while I think you hit on some things that I had notes on, is it possible we get a copy of that so we, for this discussion? We don't have a copy machine close by, do we? Does anybody else want a copy, or just me?
Yeah, I would appreciate seeing that.
I think it would be helpful since you have it. Okay.
Was there, just to ask Dr. Todd, was there a ranking that ultimately?
There was not.
Okay.
We met and just discussed the strengths and opportunities.
Thank you.
And were the discussions similar between the candidates? Did they go in different directions with different experiences, or?
We followed the same process for each candidate. After the candidate left the room, we just collaborated and discussed the strengths and opportunities. The same process is followed for each candidate.
That's great, thank you. And I think you did what we asked, and we appreciate your input, and it's certainly valuable. I would only comment that we started this process 9 months ago. The district was in a huge crisis, lack of leadership, no management team. Looked like from the outside, when I got appointed, because I established the CEO process with the chairman on my very first board meeting, this was a rudderless ship from the outside. But as I've been here 9 months, we've got a lot of really good people. And at the time that we appointed Ms. Capasso from commissioner to interim CEO, nobody wanted to step up for that job. She stepped up. I think she's done an amazing job. She's built an amazing team. I only wish the community had seen that earlier. But at this point in time, while I think Bev has done an amazing job, I'm torn because I sort of share, the chairman's perspective that we made a commitment to hire the best CEO that we could find. And looking at the scoring from the leadership team and the medical staff, it's a little concerning that we don't have a candidate potentially, I don't know, haven't discussed it, that hits it out of the park, which is what I think this organization deserves, and I think every single employee in this district needs that. So I'm a little torn with the idea of what to do. I think I've grown, and I didn't know Bev before the first meeting, and I've grown to really appreciate her efforts and her leadership and her hard work. But I don't know how we could put her back into that list at this point in time, even though my heart says she's the best person for the job, because we had a process, and there's a lot of you in the community that were very opposed to her position and opposed to her being there for the last 9 months. And I think just, to come now, while I appreciate it, and I'm sure, I feel maybe it's just too late in the process. Now, maybe we don't come to a consensus on a candidate and we have to start this process over. I hope that's not the case. But I'm torn, and that's why I really wanted to see that list and kind of look through those strengths and weaknesses and maybe hear from some of the other commissioners, because this is a challenge. This is a mistake that we don't want to make. We've turned this ship around quite a bit. We haven't. They have. This team and Bev and every one of the 10,000 employees. I mean, there's a lot of good things happening that don't get reported and not talked about. But everybody in this room that's part of this team has done an amazing job. We come here once, twice a month, and we hear from you. But you're doing the hard work every day, so it's a difficult position to be in. So I'd certainly like to hear from the rest of the commissioners on their perspective on it, because we need to hire the right person. We need the right person in this role. And we need the leadership team and the medical staff to be on board, because you're going to work day in and day out. And I think these three gentlemen, plus a number of other people in the administration that have come on board in the last few months, deserve to have some certainty in their lives too. They all took risks to come here. Most of them gave up really good jobs to join this team. So, whoever we bring in needs to understand that we've got a team in place and we support this team. So I share that as the conversation we'll have, whoever the candidate is, that you've got a team in place and you've got to respect the team. They took a chance and they've delivered, and they deserve an opportunity to prove themselves over the next number of years. So.
Yeah, well, I share your thoughts too. That has to be drawn out.
I feel like I'm in an episode of The Twilight Zone. I was not expecting outpour of support, not that you don't support the system and what they do. I was really not expecting that, but I'm extremely happy to hear it. My challenge, and I voiced it last week, and as far as being true to a process, and I went back and read through the minutes just because I wanted to make sure I wasn't crazy, because certainly don't want to derail something, and that was not my intention. I left last week anticipating that we would, or I should say I went into last week anticipating we would have had our second round of interviews, which we had discussed as being part of the process. So there's a great deal of things that, at least for me, I didn't get into on the front end, anticipating
that second round. So despite that direction that this board took last week to come here today, I personally came here not able to make a suggestion. Was hoping that we would, at a minimum, have an opportunity to hear from one or two of these folks in a little bit more detailed and deeper way. But ultimately, I personally don't have a candidate that I can say with confidence is the answer for this organization. And I would say, at least for, and it is certainly would be my hope, that the folks sitting up here right now, and obviously we're not 7 people, but the folks sitting up here right now, this is the biggest decision that we will make during our term. And to make such a decision and not absolutely be certain, to be excited, to have that person's vision synchronized with where this organization needs to go. I just don't know how anybody does that in good conscience, okay? I totally agree with, staying true to a process and stuff, but that was something that we had discussed, having a second round of interviews, okay? But sitting here today, I am not in the position to recommend any of these candidates. So that's my 2 cents.
Let me answer that. I went back and I reviewed the minutes, and at the time that we made it, you and I made that motion that we'll bring, find 2 and bring 2 back, or whatever the deal was. I was thinking, as it was in the past, where we had 4 people, and we couldn't make up our minds with the 2 people. And I thought that maybe we got into a situation that you want to bring all the 4 people, and this is the reason why I reviewed the minutes. And yet, too, it says that we'll have them back. So when we came back with the 2, I had totally forgotten about that, and you're right. But when I figured, well, let's go down to 2 and figure out what we're going to do. Regarding the scoring, everybody has different type of scoring. The score, for what I understand, doesn't say that you're not qualified to be a CEO. And then we have the firm that vetted these 10 candidates, that we didn't interview all the 10 candidates. They also might have used a different type of scoring. So I don't really put too much faith on the number scoring when I'm looking at the individual. And here's things that I've heard from other people, basically in the fact that this man was, the one I mentioned, was very prepared, and then you come back with somebody. You want to bring these 2 for an interview? If that's what you want to do, I don't have a problem with that. But to close this after we promised this community on May 5th, 2017, that Ms. Capasso's job was temporarily, and I said, and I quote, if she likes to come back to the board, I would be the first one in Tallahassee advocating on her behalf. Several times she says, I don't want this job, and we embark in a search. And we're in a pretty bad spot right now, because we're totally ignoring everything that I said. For those of you who haven't heard the tape, I suggest you get a copy from Joanne, and probably make you understand what I'm talking about. Mr. Whalen and I nominated, he seconded the nomination, and even the former Commissioner Robinson says, what happens if we need to, because we were planning, you and I were planning to have a contract signed by January, correct?
That was the hope.
Yeah.
That was our intention, is to have a contract negotiated in place for January, for sure.
So at the 11th hour, somebody comes in and says, throw this process away. That's not unfair to the candidates. I have done this 3 times, and I don't really think that we should open this again. We cannot go back. I will not go back on my word to the residents of Fort Lauderdale, to our community. We promised this community, granted, Commissioner Greggswell wasn't here and Commissioner Klein wasn't here, but we promised this community that this was only going to be temporary employment. And that's what it needs to be. And we need to move forward. If you want to bring Ms. Martin and Mr. I can't pronounce his name, Jelani back for interviews, I don't have a problem with that. But to prolong the pain, and you are a group in the community, but we have almost 2 million people in Broward County. And I'm a minority just like you are. So, I'm just saying that we are putting ourselves, we're playing with fire, and we need to get moving on it. So,
That's a dangerous thing.
you want to say anything?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is quite an unusual process. I think we can all agree, interviewing candidates in public, discussing this in public, getting the input for the first time in public, because we have that obligation under state law to hear the input directly, and we're just hearing it for the first time, and we're hearing it from very important stakeholders, from the community, from the leadership, from the medical staff, and obviously there's a divergence of opinion among each of these groups as to the direction in which we should proceed. I've got to say, I'm not thrilled to see the numbers that I've seen from the leadership team in terms of the candidates. 2.9 is the highest, and that's less than a 60% on a 100-point scale, which would be a failing grade, and the others are lower than that. That being said, I think my ranking would be similar to the leadership teams in terms of where I would come out, if we, having seen the various candidates. And right now, we're not in a turnaround situation. I've only been on this board since September. And when I was appointed, people asked me, are you crazy? What are you doing? You were crazy. And every day I ask myself the same question, but at the same time, I think some of these candidates may be getting asked the same question, because at this point, we are still getting to a stable point in time. I think from what I understand, there had been a lot of instability within the system. Excuse me, and I think that the interim CEO and interim team, well, not the interim team, the interim CEO and the team that she has assembled have brought a semblance of stability to Broward Health. And the question is, do we now want to bring in another leader who would be yet another leader in a series of leaders over the last couple of years who would bring with him or her a whole new approach, a whole new team potentially, and a whole new way of doing things to yet upset whatever stability we may have achieved over the last 8 or 9 months. So, it's very difficult because, as the chairman pointed out, and again, this preceded my involvement on this board, there had been a process in place, and the objective was to find a permanent CEO. But we also want to proceed and appoint a permanent CEO that we're not thrilled with, that is not necessarily the best person out there to lead our system forward. For the sake of appointing someone, just for the sake of appointing someone, is to me not the right thing to do. We need to do what's best for the system. And I think there's been a lot of good discussion from my fellow commissioners to date, because obviously we're all hearing this for the first time from each other. And there's been a lot of good discussion about what do we do here? And what's the best way forward? There's been a number of options presented. And I think that, to me, I rule out some of the potential candidates simply because Either the experience doesn't match where we need to be today. We're not in a turnaround situation. We're not in a situation where we need someone to come in and slash and burn and turn something around, because we're not financially troubled. In fact, we're financially stable at this point. The numbers have turned around significantly under the interim leadership and the new team. So the question is, do we want to continue forward with the path that we're on, or do we want to take a risk and bring someone else in new who's potentially going to make some changes? I, for one, have been impressed by the quality of the people that have been brought in under the interim CEO, from the hospital CEOs and the hospital staff and the executive team and the deputy executive team. And when we did a search for the chief privacy officer several months back, we interviewed people again here publicly, and we reached the conclusion that the best candidate was the person we already had serving the interim role. And that, to me, is an option that we still have open to us today, as to whether we want to continue and say, remove that interim tag and make that person the permanent CEO, subject to whatever contract period we may decide is appropriate to, again, transition in a future point. Because as we know, nothing is permanent in life. But there may be a point where we say, let's go out 2 years, let's go out 3 years, and get to where we have a CEO who's going to continue that stability and continue the path that we're on for that period of time, and then maybe attract people who would score 90% or 4 out of 5 with our team and with the physician staff. I've got to say, I expected a little bit more in terms of ranking from the medical staff. I'm just seeing their input for the first time. I think just generally glancing at this for right now and trying to digest it on the fly, I think that there's a general sense as to where the various candidates fall between the leadership and the medical staff. But at the end of the day, I'm an attorney. I like to look at facts. I like to look at data. And I did a lot of analysis of prior financial performance, as much as I can get my hands on their performance, their resumes, where they had been, and whatever the word on the street was with regard to these candidates. And I think, overall that would lead me to a similar ranking, as I said, to where the leadership team came out, if I had to go down that road in terms of where we would be. But again, I think looking at the direction of the organization today, and I've looked at some of the data, in the last fiscal year to date, we've gone from a loss of roughly $25 million to a positive $1.5 million. There have been merit raises for employees. There's been a reduction in the millage rate, which is the tax rate. There's been a $315 million bond deal, which mitigated the balance sheet and reduced our debt service by $850,000 annually. So that's close to $1 million that we're going to be saving on our annual financing, which we'll be able to put back into the system. There were negotiations in employee pharmacy benefits, which saved over $8 million, and $4 million reductions in the ER stipends. So anyway, the point is, there's a lot of accomplishments that have been done to date. And I think any objective view of those leads one to believe that we're on the right path. And I think at the end of the day, I have to come out where Commissioner Gregoire comes out, which is, let's stay the path that we're on and continue forward and get into a contract with our interim CEO on a permanent CEO basis for some period of time, and then transition from there to wherever we want to be. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead.
So now that I've had an opportunity to look more closely at Dr. Tall's synopsis, it's unfortunate that the best grade we got from the leadership team was below good. I certainly had the candidates ranked highest to lowest. I don't think any of these candidates impressed the medical staff or the leadership team. That concerns me. Really concerns me, because some of our biggest challenges is keeping our medical staff happy, where they have a visionary leader who's delivering on results, delivering on financial results, delivering on quality results, and they don't seem to have a feeling that any of these candidates get there. So I'm really torn. Maybe I could advance one candidate, but I'm sure that if you're an NFL team, you don't want to advance the 35th ranked quarterback when you've got 32 teams. That concerns me. We've done that at the Dolphins here for the last 25 years. And I know this is a serious matter, and I'm making a joke about it. But I think Commissioner Klein, who came into this process long after this was established, makes some really good points. At what point, when you're driving down the road at 100 miles an hour, do you want to say to your co-passenger, okay, it's time for you to take the wheel while we're going 100 miles an hour, let's switch seats? I'm not sure that's the most productive process. Because if you look back at what we've accomplished, not we, when I say we, I mean you, this hospital system, this community was accomplished in the last 9 months. It's a challenge to turn this over to somebody who the leadership team doesn't seem to have a real solid confidence that they're going to be the right visionary leader for the future. So I'm not sure I could advance any of these candidates at this particular time. My highest ranked candidate, I have no problem. I'll share it with the community because I believe in full transparency, is Joe Galeen. I think he's compassionate, he's humble, I think he's knowledgeable, he's got the financial experience. Where I think he lacks is his ability to project in a large-scale process and project an image of being real confident, a visionary. I think he, to me, lacks that skill. I think that's really critical for a CEO, particularly a CEO who's going to step in here and have to go out to the community, talk to the media, talk to the community, talk to big groups of people. You need somebody that's going to project an image of confidence, experience, capability. Now, I think he probably has a lot of those skills. I mean, I was impressed with his knowledge. I was impressed with the way he answered questions. I shared Dr. Ta's, group's experience, that listened to the question, took a second, thought about his answer, and delivered. The other three candidates, how could we advance somebody at this point that's at best average? I don't know that we're fulfilling our obligation in this community. I can only say this is the last thing I was going to think would happen when I walked into this room today. Is I look at people's actions, not their words. And I look at this team that's been assembled, including physician services, the changes at the hospitals, with the leadership teams that are in place. And I'm saying, if we're going to make a change, let's make a change with the right person that we're all on board with. So I know it's not what you want to hear, Chairman. It's the last thing I want to say.
Listen.
I could maybe make a case that I could advance one candidate, but I don't think they're going to get the support of this board. And if we don't have the support of this board for a candidate, and we don't have the support of the medical staff or the leadership team, not that they wouldn't be professionals and work with them, but we asked them to be part of the process, and what we got back was, these candidates are average at best. I don't know that I'd be comfortable making a change at this point and taking the person that's in charge on an interim basis right now, where we're doing so many good things, where they're building this great team. We've got a chief compliance officer that I think is in place now and has a great responsibility and a great rapport with our monitor. We have an auditor in place, a chief auditor. Nigel's doing a great job of getting stuff done. Gino has done an amazing job coming up with, finding ways to save money. And Alan and Gino together are finding ways to save money, to do things better. I think you've got a executive vice president of human resources who's just hiring at a quick pace. This process, he stepped in at the midway through and took it over. I mean, I didn't get a look at the quality of the leadership team that's in place today that wasn't here 5 months ago. Forget about 9 months ago, 4 or 5 months ago. So, based upon what I've heard from Commissioner Granola, Commissioner Klein, Commissioner Uri, I think we're at a standstill here, and I don't know where we go from here, Chairman. I can't feel confident saying that there's one person here that we need to select. Now, that's not to say that Ms. Capasso should be the permanent CEO. I'm just suggesting that the four that we got here maybe don't meet the grade. Maybe we need to rethink how we're going to get the right person in here. And do we get the right person in here with another 6 months or another year's worth of positive results, positive press, positive financial position? I don't know. I think maybe we find some other candidates, but I'm not sure we have them yet. And that's unfortunate because I've spent 9 months doing this. And if I can't do something from the bottom of my heart where I 100% believe it, I'm not going to do it. And I would resign from this board if I didn't feel I could go through this process objectively and make a decision that I thought was in the best interest of everybody in this room and everybody in our community. And I'm not sure advancing one of these candidates right now would do that. And I want to be very clear that I'm not suggesting that Bev Capasso should be the permanent CEO. That process and that determination was determined back in May. She was very clear. We had a different set of circumstances. I'm just suggesting maybe we leave the ship alone and we rethink this process and find the right candidate. If it turned out to be Bev Capasso a year or two, so be it. I don't know that would be the case. I don't even know if she wants to stay in this role because I certainly have not had that conversation with her. I mean, publicly, I think she would have to tell us if she would even consider staying in this role for a period of time. Listening to what you five gentlemen, came up here and said was very interesting considering if we go back a month from now, the comments that were heard. So I would love to have heard more about what changed your mind and your feelings. I also heard what the commissioner said, and the former commissioner of this board, Commissioner, I understand his perspective on this. But I don't believe that the problems that Broward Health have had in the last 20 years are caused by anybody at this board or Bev Capasso.
Right.
Okay, these issues are deeper and they go back. So it's a long way of saying I don't think I could advance a candidate with the full confidence that we have somebody that's the right person right now. That's my perspective. I'm happy to share and offer up my ranking, and if we had a consensus on this board, we could make a decision. I came in here hoping to make a decision, but I don't know that we're there at this particular time. And I just want to be very clear that I'm not suggesting that the current interim CEO should be the permanent CEO. I'm also not suggesting we shouldn't consider making a change. I'm just saying I don't think there's enough consensus, and I think things are rolling along pretty good, and there's enough good things going on that maybe we better make sure that we have the right candidate that has the full support of the medical staff, the leadership team, this board, and every single employee at Broward Health. Because whoever steps in is going to have to bring their vision, they're going to have to clearly communicate that vision, and they're going to have to go out to the community and sell that vision. And the only candidate I could advance here, I think has a lot of those skills, but I don't think that person could sell that vision. The CEO role is not only a management role, it's a role that's a community role, and that person's got to be visible and has to be able to deliver that message. And I'm not sure they're going to get there with this group of candidates. So, and with that, I leave it alone and hear from the chairman.
Well, I just want to share two things. First of all, why wait till the 11th hour? Number two, as far as I'm concerned, okay, I have only one thing, my word. And the first words out of my mouth when I approached Ms. Capasso, because I believed that she could do the job, was knowing that there's no possible employment in the future. Would you be willing to step down? And several times, 4 or 5 times on that tape, you hear, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this. So I would never support that because I cannot go back on my word to this community. So I just want to remind you on that tape, I wish that those of you that were not here would listen to it. You can get it from Joanne. And her word was, I don't want it, I don't want it, I don't want it. And the reality is to come in 9 months later, after we do all this work. And you know, regarding the scoring system, you could have 5 different people score the same candidate, you're gonna get 5 different results. None of this scoring, for what I understand, none of this scoring says that the person is not qualified to be a CEO. And I'm pretty much agreeing in the order that they came in. But if you took the same scores to 3 or 4 different experts, you probably get 3 or 4 different answers. Just like when you bring an issue to an attorney, you're gonna get 40,000 different answers from 40,000 different attorneys. A doctor is more, you know, you get 1 or 2 opinions. Lawyers, you get 50 opinions from 50 lawyers, you know? So, but I just want to go on record that I will not support closing this process. I think we need to move on. But it's your call.
Let me just make one further point, which I left out, and I want to say thank you to the community members who sat through the hours and hours of interviews that we did last week. There were very few people who sat through that besides us. And you all were there, and I appreciate you being there and being part of the process. And I think, to me, that shows not only commitment, but it also gives me a lot of credence in the feedback that you're giving to us today. Because at the end of the day, we're serving our community. And the representatives of the community have a very important voice to us, and we want to hear that feedback. So I just want to say thank you for being here and being part of that process, and then being here today and conveying that to us, because that is an essential part of what the process is.
Chairman, can I ask a quick question? Commissioner, can I ask a question? Real quick. So I would, while we're maybe stepping out of our normal pressure, I would be interested to hear from Pastor Gary Johnson, if the chairman would allow, what changed the mind from your community? If you, is it okay if you give him a couple?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I think this is, I mean, we sat here a month ago and you told us as a group.
Okay, hold on a second. I think Commissioner Yuri.
I just wanted to say something first. Just pardon me for one. Yeah, you're fine. You can say it right there. It's fine. But I wasn't actually going to bring this up, but I'm starting to feel like maybe it's at least somewhat explanatory as to how we got to the point where making a decision was a challenge. When I had heard Chairman Rodriguez mention a number of times the number of applicants for this position exceeded 300 or so applicants, I wanted to understand what it was that brought the 10 to me for consideration, right? And one of the things that I would say, arguably the biggest thing that concerned me as to how that list was whittled down from 300 plus to 10 was that less than 10% of the applicants met the minimum qualifications we posted. So it's not in any way a reflection of the folks that met the qualifications. Of course, the 4 that came here and the 10 that we actually evaluated, I don't know the other folks, but I think that's important at this juncture for people to understand. My own personal opinion, having been here for a particularly challenging couple of years, is this organization has a industry-wide, at least my opinion is it's an industry-wide credibility problem, okay? And I believe that perhaps singular issue is a meaningful impact on generally the number of people that are interested in vying for this position, because I think this is actually a wonderful opportunity for somebody I just think that we've got to figure out how we're going to better communicate that. How do we resolve this credibility problem? Well, one of those ways is time. I would not be supportive of Ms. Capasso being a permanent CEO, okay? Not from any, going back on word or anything like that. I think, though, that at least from my perspective, I could absolutely rally around the idea of seeing us through the CIA or something like that. I'm not exactly sure the duration of that time. Maybe it's two plus years, 3 years, something like that. That I could understandably support. And when I say not supportive of her in a permanent role, it's in large part because I didn't evaluate her for that role. So seeing through to the CIA, though, that would be something to consider. But I say that in the context of resolving this credibility issue, at least that from my perspective is a challenge for us, getting the applicants that instead of a failing score being the best are going to be closer to that 5. And I think we need a 5-star CEO because this is a 5-star organization. Anyway, sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Commissioner Stevenson, for the opportunity.
Can you just pull the mic a little closer? Because I can.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
That's great. Perfect.
Okay.
I want everybody to hear in the room. That's right.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm on a board on Miami Beach right now with Urban Beach Weekend with the incidents, the racial incidents going on. I'm also the police chaplain for Miami Beach Police Department. My mom used to work there. After 7 o'clock, she couldn't come back home when I was a kid because of the racial issues. I met with my board members. I've never spoken to the current acting CEO. I spoke with some of the employees. I didn't make a decision and talked about what changed me. What I needed to do was stand on principles. There's a gentleman right now, and you know him, he was in the media just recently, by the name of Frank Artillis. Had to resign because they said he used the N-word. I met with the very people that said he said that, and they said he didn't say it to them. He's a Hispanic, well-known representative. He came to me, and I'm going to stand for him against people of my color, because it's what's right. And for me to stand here and offer the support of the current CEO you have in position right now, I weighed the temperature of the employees, management, and everything else, and I came up, working with others, a conclusion that why change something when even the very grade that you got right now is no higher than a 2.9, and the highest is 4 points. Do you want mediocrity? You going backwards? And I listened to the chairman, all due respect to him. He said just a minute ago, she will make a great CEO. He said that just now. I'm just using his words. So for me, I looked at who can we work with, and you're right, Councilman Stephen, we sat here to both days and listened to every candidate. Some had high points, some had low points. But even Councilwoman Nancy said, no one talked about the community. Neither one of them mentioned it. She had to mention it. So you weigh options and you say, who can I work with and who can drive Baptist to a better place? Then let's wait. Let's get with that person and help them make it better. Not mediocrity, but grow to a higher level of service. And for us, even if my members disagree with me, I base on integrity and who will do the right thing to help listen to the community and make sure the doctors and the employees, and if she made some mistakes along the way, there's room for correction. What I'm listening to right now is an individual saying, we need to do this right now. What, you want a base hit or you want to hit the home run? So having said that, all due respect, that I'm glad to see for the first time in Dade, Broward, West Palm Beach, I've said in these meetings, council people have their own mind. They speak for themselves. Because it's not an I situation, it's a we situation. And so I don't have to harp on these three gentlemen. Councilman Klein, you're right, she's assembled a great team. And I agree with one thing, if she wants a job, then she should say it. But I respect the fact that she wanted to fall back from a process because she wants what's best for the hospital. So she's not going to force her way, especially with somebody saying, you don't want it, you're not going to be able to get it if after this process is over, you're not going to, you're just out of the question. You're forcing her when she can't get a chance to even apply for it. So she's done a good job, and if you're going to open it up, if she desires the job, then give it an opportunity. If she doesn't, I agree with you, Chairman. Let's find the best CEO for the hospital, for those doctors, for the employees, and if it's a respect thing, making sure these employees' morale is up to par. Because what's important is not you take sides with the norm, but you take over for what is right. Thank you.
Thank you. Pastor, thank you.
Thank you.
Because it was important. I wanted to get a perspective because I think this is a difficult decision, and we're going to be held accountable for whatever decision we make. And that accountability, personally, is a big decision. It's a huge amount of responsibility placed on my shoulders and the four commissioners sitting next to me. All of us have businesses and careers and reputations. And the only reason I sit on this board is to try to be objective and give my own honest opinion, my own perspective. No one's going to change my mind, no one's going to influence my decision. I'm trying to be influenced by the knowledge and the facts, as Commissioner Klein said, when he makes a decision as an attorney. My decision is, I look at things on a mathematical basis, on a logical basis. So I appreciate your candor. I appreciate the five of you stepping up here and getting on record publicly in front of the media and telling us that you have changed your mind, your perspective on things. I think that's honorable, and I appreciate it. So thank you very much, all of you.
I didn't mean to move without any questions. I'm sorry. So I do respect if you had any questions for me, Chairman.
No.
Any questions?
I just want to let you know how I feel.
Yes, sir.
I stand on my grounds, and
yes, sir.
They feel different, and I have no problem with it. This is not my first rodeo.
Yes, sir. If I might ask something, I'll close with this. My chief of police in Miami Beach, we had to go on the outside and bring a chief in. So I understand the process. It was because the department was so racial inside. We got rid of several officers because it was profiling. It was pulling over Hispanics, profiling African Americans. We have gotten most of those officers out of our department, but we had to go on the outside. The city of Miami just hired a chief on the inside because he's qualified to do the right thing for the employees. I get it. I've been there. I've seen it. But guess what? City of Miami Police Department and Miami Beach Police Department, we work hand in hand with them because we want what's best for the people. That's why we're here. We want to support you, what you're doing, but we want what's best for the patients that come inside, but also the employees. That's why we're here, Councilman and Chairman. Thank you, Board. And if I'm dismissed, I'll be more than happy to sit down and you can beat me up from over there.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to say one more thing, Mr. Chair. I'm not suggesting that Ms. Carpasso stay in a permanent capacity. In fact, I don't think she would want to because she was retired before she took on this job. But what I am suggesting is that while this ship is righting, as you all have said, and while things are improving, she should stay because at the end of her term, whatever that might be, we will attract much more quality candidates. I know I started my earlier presentation by saying the four were excellent. We know the four were not excellent. They were
nice people. They had some experience, but they are not the excellence that this district deserves and that this district will have as it continues to improve. Because we didn't attract the best. We attracted the 2.9ers because we were, I understand, I wasn't on the board, but this was a disaster a year ago. Who would want to leave a position with another hospital district and come to a disaster? I mean, you'd have to have a salvation complex to want to do that. So we didn't get the best. But I promise you, as long as I'm on this board, we will continue to improve and we will attract the best when Ms. Carpasso chooses to go. Thank you.
Commissioner Tryon, you have a question?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that having heard everything that I've heard from my fellow commissioners and from the public and from the physicians and the executive team, to me it's rather clear that we stay the course and we stay where we are. We continue to right the ship. The ship is already on the right path. And if we bring in another person, and I don't want to disparage any of the candidates, I think that they've all run systems, they've all run hospitals, and they all have a decent track record. I think that, you know, as the doctors have pointed out, the physicians have pointed out, there's positives and negatives. I think that the scores of the leadership team reflect that same sense. But if we continue to move forward, as Commissioner Gregoire just said, we will be that much more stabilized and that much more improved at the point when we want to get a truly permanent CEO. So to me, it's a question of continuing on the course we're on with the community support and with the executive team that we have. And again, there's a risk, and that's one of the things you always have to weigh, is what's the risk of one decision versus the other? So if we continue on the path we're on, we know the direction we're going in. We know where we are, we know the progress that's been made, we know quality is improving, finances are improving, and the employee level is improving in terms of the quality of our team here. If we bring in someone else, that person may bring in a whole slew of different people. And those people may work out and they may not work out. So there's certainly an element of risk if we make a change. They may fire half the people in this room. Say, oh, I've got better people. And those people may not be better. And the direction we're heading in may take a turn for the worse. I mean, there's no guarantee of results. And yes, you know, the results of some of these folks have been pretty good in different systems, in different environments. I don't think there's any one-for-one comparison with any of the candidates' experience as to this system. I think that Mr. Jolene's is probably the closest. I asked him that question last week. If he felt his experience was comparable, he said he felt it was. And I think among the four, his experience is probably the most comparable. But no one is a one-for-one to match. And I think the folks who know the system now and have us on the right path are the folks we should keep. And that's where I come out. For some period of time, again, not saying we're going to hire a permanent CEO, but remove the interim tag, get into a contract. If Ms. Carpasso is even willing to do this and say, all right, you know, here's your contract. And during that time frame, we know what time period we're working with, and we know we can do a further and I think better search, and I think attract even better candidates. As it was mentioned, I think by Commissioner Uri, 5-star candidates. So that's where I end up coming out. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else?
The only thing I add is, we're assuming that if we didn't come to this conclusion or consensus, that Ms. Carpasso would even consider staying on. So I don't know the answer to that question. But I think Commissioner Klein makes a point. There's got to be some certainty to this process. I think the risk with the CIA is too huge to put somebody in who doesn't have experience with the CIA. I think there's one or two candidates that have been operated under a CIA. And I think that the environment that we're currently in, the political environment that's pushing a lot of the decisions and a lot of the pressure that this system is facing, and if we don't hire somebody, we're going to have, I mean, the onslaught's going to be there. So, but I think as commissioners, we can't be scared of pressure. We should be scared of making the wrong decision. And every decision I've ever made in my life, I've made it not from being scared, but by thinking about what is the absolute best result available to me right now or at this time. So I think that's the decision each one of us on this board needs to make. And if the decision is none of these candidates work, we better find out if Ms. Capasso would even consider staying on. And I'm not suggesting that's where we're going, but we should find that answer out, because someone needs to drive this ship. Somebody needs to have the authority to make decisions. Somebody needs the authority to speak for the district. Someone's going to have to sign on the dotted line as the CEO, either interim or permanent. And so if we don't have that consensus, we better find out who's going to be that person. That was the reason I said from the beginning, when I got on this board and the CEO announced his retirement several months earlier, I looked around the room and I asked the question, who in this room could sign at the dotted line? And there was nobody in the executive suite when Kevin Fusco decided to announce his retirement the day after my first board meeting. I don't want to be in that position again. So, Chairman, I think...
And we didn't have a COO either.
We didn't have a CFO. We didn't have a chief operating officer, a chief financial officer. We didn't have chief physician services. We had a HR director, and I think that was the extent of our executive team. So I think we need to bring this to a close one way or the other. Let's see if there's consensus on this board. Put us, the community's on record. I think it's time that we go on record whether we want to move forward or not. And if not, we better let's come up with a contingency plan right now, today, to give continuity and stability to this organization, which I think we're moving in a direction where we have been stable for a number of months and growing stability and a comfort level in the business community, in the financial community, hopefully in the community of where we all live, that there's stability one way or the other. So that's the last thing I'm going to say. I'll turn it over to you, Chairman.
Well, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to stay the course. You guys can vote any way you want to. All I have is my word. I made the word to this community, and so did the ones of us who were present at the time. So this has got nothing to do about Ms. Capasso. I brought her in. I nominated her. I know what she's capable of, but that doesn't take away the fact that I made a promise. And now at the 11th hour, if Ms. Capasso didn't want it, if she wanted to stay here, some of these should have been brought up earlier. But I'm going to leave it up to you guys. I can support closing this thing, because the system, it's not working to me, in my view, and it's nothing personal. But I'll tell you one thing. I know how this hospital has been manipulated by many people from the outside for years. I know the political influence in the outside that gets carried into these rooms. I was hoping that we would find someone that comes in with no strings attached, someone that has a clear view, and someone that doesn't know where Andrews Avenue is, and perhaps someone that is not beholden to anyone. So if I can have that, I'm just going to stay the course, and not because I'm afraid of anyone. I've never been afraid of anything. I lived under the gun most of my life. Military and political family in a communist country. So I didn't take Fidel's rap, and I'm not about to take anybody's rap. But I do have one thing, and I live with that, my words, and I'm not going back on it. So It's up to you guys what you want to do.
I would just say that in terms of my word, I think I share your opinion, Mr. Chairman, as far as the importance. But first and foremost, I gave my word to this community in accepting the seat that I was going to do what I felt was best for the system, first and foremost. So I don't really feel, quite frankly, that for any person on this board right now to lack confidence in advancing somebody is somehow going back on their word. So I really want to make sure we're clear on that.
No, but I think that this is what best for the system,
That's
is to move on.
I'm not saying, but my point.
Okay,
is
that's your-
just
that's
I'm
your
saying that
opinion.
I'm not your suggestion, at least, and if I misunderstood you, my apologies. The way I understood what you were saying was whether or not you feel like this is one of these candidates are the right person for this organization. The decision has to be made because somebody gave their word however many months ago that they were going to go through a process and find a new CEO. I want to find the right person for this job now. That's my own personal opinion. I had said it last week. I thought we had a different process. Hold on a second.
No, I just want to tell you.
That's fine. I'm happy to hear that. I'm not suggesting otherwise. But my point is that just because somebody doesn't feel like one of these candidates is the right person for the job, it's not going back on their word. Okay, in my opinion, it's not. In fact, it's standing up for how you feel. And I would applaud that person 10 times out of 10. So, again, this is the most important decision that this board will make, and I certainly pray for the duration of their term here. And that needs to be at the core of doing what you feel is right. Obviously with input from staff, input from the community, and I don't feel good about advancing any one of these folks, so that's...
Let me give you something. Knowing this district and having lived in Broward since '69, I know Commissioner Whelan was born here. If you brought Mother Teresa here as a candidate today, somebody here will find so many faults that it would be unbelievable. Because I know what I believe it is in the best interest of Broward Health, and because my word, I can tell you that I just feel the way I do, and I'm going to stand on it. You guys can do whatever you want. I'm not riding that buggy.
Well, I suppose that the next thing to do is to make a motion that we first find out if Ms. Carpasso is willing to stay for a period of time up to and including 3 years, which is, I believe, the end of the agreement. And if she is, then move on and appoint her and get her a contract for that period of time. So I guess I'll put that in motion form.
And then just there is an opportunity at the board. The last discussion item is the selection, which I think was to grow out of this meeting, coming up at the 4 o'clock meeting. It's on the discussion agenda.
So to be clear, so the 4 o'clock agenda will include essentially the confirmation of whatever's coming out of this committee meeting.
That would be my recommendation, because it says CEO search final selection. So if you make a motion and then if the opportunity is to determine the willingness, then you could do that at the board meeting under the discussion, and then any members of the public who might not have been here for this can get a recap at that time.
So no idea of Robert's Rules of Orders. So do I make the motion now to present it at the,
I mean, technically, you're still the full board, but just to keep, for abundance of caution, make the motion, and then you can discuss it also in a recap form at the 4 o'clock meeting, whatever your motion is.
so I guess my motion would be to present at the full board meeting our position that Ms. Carpasso should stay as long as we expect her to stay, which I think is probably around a 3-year period. And during the 3rd year, re-engage our activities to find a permanent CEO. And I think that would be a much more appropriate time to do that because the ship is still righting itself.
I would second that
So we
motion.
have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Whitmore,
Aye.
Commissioner Klein,
Aye.
Commissioner Wellens,
Can you just read the motion one more time, as it was stated? Just one clarification on that.
I'll do my best. I'm going to get a Robert's Rules of Order book. To propose to the full board at our board meeting that we ask Ms. Carpasso to remain for a 3-year period during which she will have a contract for a 3-year period, a written contract. And during the 3rd year, or whenever it's appropriate, I don't know how long it took you this time, but whenever it's appropriate, begin our search again.
For a permanent CEO.
For a permanent CEO.
Is the 3-year term a reference to the
CIA.
end of the CIA? Because it's actually, I don't know if it's 3 or less than 3 or more than 3. So maybe I would offer an amendment to it to say that if the board so chooses, that we ask Ms. Capasso if she would be willing to serve as the interim CEO to the end of the CIA, as opposed to defining a time frame, because I think the CIA might be less than 3 years. But I think if that would have certainty to the motion and certainty to the time of her interim
I
status.
accept that as an amendment with a written contract.
I accept that as well. I think August 31st is the termination date, so the August 31st, 2020, is that correct?
Right. Who's next? I think, yeah, so we're in 17, 18, 19. Yeah, this will be year 3, will be August.
The only other does that require an approval of the monitor?
No.
No. So a change in the CEO or would not, doesn't
There's
require?
no approval. It's a
No approval.
notification.
Okay. All right. So maybe we run the roll call again.
Commissioner Whitmore,
Aye.
Commissioner Klein,
Aye.
Commissioner Wellens,
Aye.
Commissioner Uri,
Aye.
Commissioner Rodriguez.
No.
Motion carries.
Gentlemen, you're going to stand with us. When the bullets fly, the community, this is in the community's best interest, so we expect your continued support if that's what in fact your community wants. And,
And thank you for the support you've given us so far.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you.
A motion to adjourn.
Second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.